following program contains scenes of sexuality, violence, coarse language, and adult themes. Because it's awesome! Viewer discretion is advised. Public episode of Lady Bits. I'm Leanna Kersner. Momo is super duper comfy, and as always, I'm joined by the six-sided interdimensional party animal, Glowy Box. Our very last question is the damsel in distress really so bad? I left this one for last because it builds on a lot of the previous things we've tackled to truly understand. And yet, it's such a simple idea. A beautiful, innocent young woman placed in peril by an antagonist who needs rescuing, often by a male hero. No narrative trope has been more maligned than the damsel in distress. There's even a short-form pejorative for it, damseling. I hate this term. Like I hate The Sims. All together, I hate The Sims. Oh, Momo doesn't like hatred. Sorry, Momo. He's become a critic. A damsel is a young unmarried woman, as in the French word mademoiselle. The word has nothing to do with anything specifically happening to this young unmarried woman, so using the verb damseling as a pejorative is misogynist. It makes the state of being a young unmarried woman into an inherently bad thing. So stop the intellectually lazy catchphrase feminism. Use your friggin' words. And Momo has returned to help us talk about the subject of laziness, because that's the main reason that the criticisms of the damsel in distress have been taken so seriously by the video game industry. Developers knew they were being lazy in their plots. The damsel in distress is used over and over and over again in video games because Nintendo did it with Super Mario Bros., and game designers are notorious copycats, as you saw in the Lady Bits historical retrospective episodes. It's okay for me to say copycat? Okay. It's frustrating that we have to scold game companies into being original, but lots of tropes are badly overused. Soul survivors, military heroes, zombies. So many zombies. Alien invasions, evil wizards trying to take over kingdoms, and mental illness being equated with evil. And combined, these tropes don't draw the same number of complaints as the damsel in distress. So does the damsel in distress really deserve its infamy? Is it any worse than these other cliches? On the one hand, the damsel in distress does cast women as default victims in various morality plays, thanks to those misogynist traditional gender roles that we looked at last episode. This is of concern because it impacts the opinions people have of 50% of the human population. But as we saw in the character agency episode, no type of game character is truly empowered because they're all toys the player plays with. The noble knight, or plumber, who rescues the princess is controlled by the player and doesn't make many meaningful decisions without player input. The damsel in distress is older than monotheism, found in stories like the Greek myth of the hero Perseus and the damsel in distress Andromeda. Perseus, of Killer of Gorgons fame, discovers Andromeda chained to the rocks by the sea, after her father is convinced by Zeus to appease Poseidon by sacrificing his impossibly beautiful daughter. Then there's Helen of Troy, whose kidnapping started the Trojan War. Helen wasn't a damsel, though, in that she was married to King Menelaus, and her kidnapping may actually have been an elopement with another dude. But as these stories demonstrate, women were commodities controlled by men in some ancient Greek cultures to appease other men or the gods, and beauty was prized in women the same way it's prized in jewelry. It made the girl worth more. Even Zeus himself liked to impregnate women without their consent in the form of rainfalls and birds. Zeus was like a messed up Wonder Twins. Rape powers activate! Form of swan! Granted, human life in general didn't mean as much back then. Human sacrifice, like what Andromeda's father wanted to do to her, was a thing. What was also a thing was an oral tradition that needed to keep an audience engaged, and the damsel in distress device was a fast track to sex and violence. Works every time. There also weren't that many rules to warfare back then, other than win. As polytheism gave way to monotheism, religious teaching shifted from why certain things happened, happy gods meant good things happened, angry gods meant ish went down, to a moral code. The Jewish people came up with 613 commandments that were intended to remind adherents of different ethical points. Christianity then winnowed those down to the 10 commandments, and this radically impacted warfare, because murder was now a mortal sin instead of just messy and inconvenient. So, the church needed to figure out conditions when killing in war wasn't considered murder. Civilization players are well aware of the casus belli mechanic, wherein only certain conditions allow you to go to war without everyone else hating your guts. Because virginal women were seen as inherently pure, the kidnapping of one of these pure souls was an easy justification for war. Hence, the damsel in distress is the beginning of a heroic quest. By the end of the 900s, the European church also had a practical problem on its hands. The nobility kept fighting each other and killing commoners like an episode of Into the Badlands. Awesome show, but this was bad for business. I mean the souls of God-fearing Christians. And the church used religious sanctions to create rules for combat. These rules became known as chivalry, or the Knight's Code. Some of the early rules give insight into how bizarrely violent medieval times were, since they include stuff like don't randomly beat up the clergy, don't steal or kill farm animals for no reason, don't torture random people, don't burn down houses without a good reason, and don't attack widows, nuns, and women traveling without their husbands unless they actively provoke you. The armies of the nobility had to be actively told not to do these things, which means they were doing these things. Combine this insanity with a generally low regard for women and a patriarchal land inheritance structure, and Europe needed a framework to encourage warriors to see women as something other than potential rape targets. So they tried out an idea called courtly love. Courtly love, not Courtney Love. That's a metaphor for a train wreck. You don't want me making fun of Courtney Love? Even Courtney Love? Courtly love started off as fiction, possibly imported from Muslim Spanish poets, but the idea caught on and started being seen as an exercise in knightly discipline. A knight entered into a relationship with a noble lady wherein he acknowledged and accepted her independence, since she may have been married, but he still tried to make himself worthy of her affections and esteem by acting nobly, bravely, and completing tasks and tests she set out for him. These relationships weren't necessarily platonic in that sexual attraction may have been present, but sexual satisfaction wasn't the goal. The goal was to show what great guys God-fearing Christians were by protecting the weak, making war against those who preyed on the weak, and keeping their word to protect the weak. Physical weakness became a virtue for certain types of people because it gave heroes an opportunity to perform butt kicking for goodness. Oh, you don't like my Minsk impression either. If a sweet, innocent young woman who couldn't hurt a fly, an inherently good person, was abducted or imperiled, that meant her abductor was clearly evil and an agent of injustice. So, the knight got moral license to kill said agents of injustice. Over time, the damsel in distress trope has brought back that Greek idea of personal benefit element to create the idea of a damsel in distress who falls for the hero and rewards him with a booty call. A sexual relationship isn't essential, however. The damsel in distress trope was a stepping stone to seeing women as people instead of property through the idea that it was inherently rewarding to help the innocent instead of just allying with the powerful. Of course, this all seems dated and backward by today's standards, but these tales are guilty pleasure storytelling. And there's an inherent element of a woman giving a good man sex precisely because he's not just trying to get sex. The intent of the medieval damsel in distress wasn't to strip women of their agency uniquely. The church didn't want anyone having agency because they used it to burn down houses for no reason. The damsel in distress was a rigid social role, yeah, but at the time, Every social role was rigid. Pulling women out of public life for our own protection has created long-term societal problems, but the intents were good. The Dark Ages were called the Dark Ages for a reason. This is all European tradition, however. In video games, there's an interesting twist to the damsel in distress, because the Japanese narrative tradition also factors in. And that's the subject of our final lady bit. In Japan, when people think of noble women in medieval castles, the associations are different from those in Europe, because Japan's regression involving women happened a few centuries later. I'm absolutely not trying to claim that the Japan of today is an especially great place for women. I'm just saying that their romanticized medieval period tropes are different from the European ones in some important ways. Japan has a tradition of women with their own personal guards, defending their estate from invaders. Japanese noble women even had their own form of martial arts. Onabugeisha. Their weapon of choice was the nagitana, a curved blade on a pole which compensated for the size and strength advantage of male opponents. If a Japanese noblewoman was unable to fight off her male assailants, she was expected to commit a form of ritual suicide with her legs tied together so she couldn't be captured, raped, or be discovered in an undignified position. So, Japanese media is less about damsels in distress and more about kicking ass in a dress. Because of the Shinto tradition, Japanese media often uses the trope of wisdom and a connection to nature overpowering aggressive power, the way Aerith Gainsborough returns to the life stream after being struck down by Sephiroth in Final Fantasy VII. This same tradition influenced the character arc of Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars. Then there's Princess Zelda in the Legend of Zelda series. Zelda lore is an interesting mix of European Arthurian myth and Shinto principles. The villain of a Zelda game, usually Ganon, is associated with power. Link, the playable character, is associated with courage. Princess Zelda is the bearer of wisdom, and the result is an ongoing battle of brains and determination over brawn. Because she has her own power, Princess Zelda is not a traditional damsel in distress. Princess Zelda is an amalgam of Western and Eastern princess traditions. She ultimately needs rescuing, but she's actively fighting the powerful Ganon using her wits, precognition, and even a knowledge of science instead of brawn. Right from the original Legend of Zelda game in 1986, Zelda outsmarts Ganon by breaking up her Triforce of Wisdom into 8 pieces, a lucky number associated with prosperity in Japanese numerology. She then hides these pieces in secret underground dungeons. Then she dispatches her nursemaid, Impa, to find a hero with enough courage to save the kingdom. This makes Zelda an active participant, not just a helpless captive. Furthermore, because Zelda is a head of state, not just some random woman, Ganon is essentially attempting a coup d'etat, which would be the exact same story if Zelda were male. In multiple Zelda games, Princess Zelda either evades Ganon and helps Link with clues, knowledge, or even direct assistance, or spends the entire game holding off Ganon until Link can arrive. And unlike the vaguely romantic undertones between Bowser and Peach in the Super Mario games, there's no indication that Ganon has any designs on Zelda. He wants her lands in her Triforce, and that's it. Sometimes Ganon isn't even humanoid. Princess Peach is a much more cut and dried damsel in distress, but even that isn't as consistent as critics insist. In the original Super Mario Bros., her kidnapping is indeed the central problem to solve. But in the North American version of Super Mario 2, Peach is a playable character. In Super Mario 3, she's a quest giver until near the end of the game when, she gets kidnapped. But she's also a competitor in Mario Kart and Smash Bros., a playable character in Mario Party, and an active part of the team in Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Because of this, Peach makes a poor poster girl for the damsel in distress phenomenon. This doesn't negate the fact that there are a lot of straight-up damsels in distress in games, but it's not Peach's fault that everybody copied her. Some players need an element of altruism to find violent gameplay fun, and the urge to save non-combatants is a good one. However, a similarly overused subset of the damsel in distress, the woman in refrigerator trope, uses the death, maiming, or depowering of a female character, usually a love interest, as nothing more than a device to advance the story arc of the main male character. It's totally obvious why people have a problem with this. In many video games, however, the number of random male enemies who end up dead, also only to advance the story arc of the male main character, leads some gamers to remark on an imbalance in the way hurting women and hurting men in video games is viewed. This has led some gamers to complain about male expendability in video games, or disposable male syndrome. It's true that there's a lot less focus on the number of random male soldiers that get killed for the player's enjoyment than that one woman the playable character has to rescue. This is a qualitative conundrum, not a quantitative one. While objectively more men do get killed in your average combat-driven video game, they usually attack the player first, fulfilling that chivalric requirement that dude deserved it. The women who get slaughtered in video games are often non-combatants, which is a different paradigm. So each game has to be looked at in a nuanced way. The question is whether a character is being killed because they're a man or a woman, or because they're a combatant who is trying to kill you first. That being said, we could use more female enemy classes in video games, just again, to get away from the copycat habit. Inverting the damsel in distress so a female playable character rescues men, however, apparently doesn't work, especially with kids. Developers of all ages games have told me that when they try to make female characters rescue male characters, girls interpret that as boy chasing, and they don't like it. Based on all of this information, the problem appears to be less about a particular character needing rescuing in a video game. The problem is that damsels in distress are often poorly developed, boring, annoying characters who are more of a trophy than a person. We explore that in our final versus mode.
Help! Help! I am captured! Again, I need help!
Who exactly are you yelling at?
I don't know. This is just what I always do. Help!
I'm pretty sure at that vocal pitch you're talking to dolphins.
Oh, I love dolphins. Do you have dolphins?
No.
Oh. Bird friend! Hello, little bird friend. What is it that you see when you're soaring over rainbows?
Are you actually doing a musical number?
No?
Yes, you were.
I'm done now.
Are you always this agreeable?
Oh, yes. Unless you'd rather I not be.
Darling, if you don't grow a spine, you're going to end up as nothing more than an accessory to an important male character. You're not even going to get much dialogue, which, in your case, might not be a bad thing.
I don't get it.
Of course you don't. Listen, love, don't complain about being captured. It means you still have inherent value in this world. Wait until you get older and you're not so cute. Once you pop out a few kids, they're the ones that matter. And if you try to do anything for yourself, if you have a shred of ambition, you're branded evil. If you learn the word no, you're evil. If you get tired of working overtime to make men actively comfortable, you know what happens then?
You get kidnapped?
No, you get labeled evil.
Oh, I'm not good at the rule of 3.
Well, you better get good, because the rule of 3 is central to boss fights, and you want to be the final boss, right?
Should I want to be the final boss?
It's better than being Princess Ditsface.
I'm Princess Sparkle Muffin. Princess Ditsface is my cousin, and being the final boss sounds very nice, but I don't want to be evil.
Oh, you will, Muffin. You will. When you discover that being good gets really fucking boring.
I've already noticed that, but that's why I sing to my bird friends. But they do sometimes poop on my gloves. That's why I wear gloves.
Get used to getting shit on, honey. You're a princess of patriarchy.
What's patriarchy?
This requires booze.
This doesn't make much sense because after the first few times, you think I get better security. And it takes them forever to find me because they do all this other stupid stuff. They don't need to jump on that many turtles to do all those secret levels.
That's why it's better to kill them.
They have unlimited lives cheat codes sometimes. They always smell like mushroom. You're nice to me. I think we're friends now.
That's the tequila goggles talking, love.
Can I be you when I grow up? Maybe I'll go get I love you. I love... Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'll drop her in a ditch somewhere while she's out. The good guys deserve her to be their problem. Kidding aside, I think she was kidding. There is a serious consideration to shaming feminine archetypes that involve women being kidnapped or imprisoned. It involves the very real-world problem of human trafficking. 75% of all trafficked victims are female. Over 95% of victims trafficked for sexual exploitation are women. 72% are under the age of 25. So the damsel in distress is a modern phenomenon. These girls need rescuing. But human trafficking is a difficult crime to prosecute because it relies on witness testimony, and victims are either so traumatized that they have memory gaps, or they don't recognize they are, in fact, victims of human trafficking. There's a huge difference between consensual sex work and sexual exploitation, and many trafficked women are brainwashed into believing they're doing what they're doing willingly. Part of this is because the idea of being a victim, a damsel in distress, is profoundly shameful. Police investigators I've spoken to have told me of the difficulty of interviewing trafficking victims. Far from being weeping proper victims, they're often defiant and even verbally abusive to the police. The dynamic is similar to the way many men don't report sexual assault because they don't realize they've been sexually assaulted or they're too embarrassed. Shame creates silence. So while it's totally good to point out that any plot or character cliche in gaming is being horrendously overused, it's important to avoid making the trope itself inherently bad or shameful. It's possible to debate the specific uses of various damsels in distress and bald space marines without engaging in things that stigmatize victims of crime or military veterans. But when you make the damsel in distress an inherently bad thing instead of an overused thing, you make it harder for young women and men to face the reality that they're in a bad situation that they need help getting out of. The message that's currently being sent by video game feminism is that if you're unable to save yourself from an abusive situation, you're a weak, disgusting, pernicious thing. But the first step to getting out of an abusive or exploitative situation is recognizing that you're in one. Then, you usually need help getting out. So while it's fair to criticize any lazy, overused trope, the damsel in distress isn't all bad, despite its sexist traditionalist underpinnings. It would just be great if game developers included different types of women more often and used damsels in distress, girl Fridays, and other supportive or helpless female roles less, because gamers get bored encountering the same stuff over and over and over again. But we can push for that without shaming people who need help. The year Super Mario 3 came out, I used it to avoid life and a person in it who was bullying me. I'd stay up all night playing Super Mario 3, so I'd have an excuse to sleep all day during the summer to avoid that person until I could go back to school in the fall. What could have been a miserable summer, and parts of it did suck, I remember primarily as the summer of Super Mario 3. It's possible that Super Mario 3 saved my life. It certainly saved my sanity. These are the sorts of stories I hear from gamers constantly. These are the sorts of stories that inspire this series. And these stories are the inspiration for this week's trophy. Oh, it's hard to stand up in a dress. Ta-da! The final trophy of this series is inspired by the way gamers escape their troubles through video games. No matter what you're going through, no matter how tough things get, if you're a gamer, remember that there is a community who will support you. Male, female, gay, straight, and everything in between, no matter what race or color you are, whether you're a furry, a cyborg, or any other kin, trash talk aside, we don't care. We care that you're a gamer, so we immediately have something in common. That's what I love about this hobby. So, number 12, onto the shelf. The central hypothesis of this series was that the assumption that gamers are inherently hostile to women was wrong. That as long as a woman is a gamer, other gamers will listen to her. And through your support, laughter, thoughtfulness, and yes, even your disagreements and criticisms, you prove this hypothesis right. This series was funny, goofy, opinionated, and at times hard-hitting and even bizarre. And the response was positive. That's very rewarding. Combating myths like this about video games and the people who play them will be the focus of my next series, Boss Fight, which will be crowdfunded in the spring of 2019. And some of your favorite versus mode characters will be back for an encore. If you want to be part of shaping the topics and direction of this new series, become a monthly Patreon supporter and also get access to a special backers-only episode of Lady Bits coming very soon. If you can't afford a couple bucks a month, sharing on social media helps others discover this series. So everybody, please, share away. And with that, we're done. There'll be some bonus content in the coming months, and Kickstarter backers will get their goodies now that we can make the DVDs. This is just the beginning, and you made that possible. So, I'm Leanna Kersner. Thanks for letting me show all of you my lady bits.
His face is, you brought me here for this? Let's see.